I gotta admit, Joe Benson scares me sometimes. T-Boz, are you with me this morning?
I am with you. I got to tell you, Mr. Williams, the scariest part of this show, everyone, is when I turn off the Alexa and Jock has to turn me off on the phone while he's doing the final announcement. So there's dead silence, and I guess it's like the way the lunar module, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin felt when they finally got let go of the LEM, of the major rocket, and then they were on their own. And so I'm always wondering, is he going to come on? Are we connected? And it's a scary part. But it's live. And Merry Christmas, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Williams. Thank you for getting us through that scary part of the show. How are you, my good friend?
Actually, I'm doing quite well today, sir.
Yes, and you look fabulous in that Santa Claus outfit. Boys and girls, it's the most beautiful red. The hat fits him beautifully. The white is whiter than white. The belt. Unfortunately, they put me in the Mrs. Santa Claus outfit, and it just doesn't look right. Couldn't we get Holly or Alicia or Darcy to play the part of for today's spectacular, Jock?
Sorry, you're complying with the specs. It was a drag queen Santa Claus, so
right. And so I've got this white wig on, boys and girls. The people in makeup put my cheeks all red, and I've got this blouse, and my God, I look like something was stuffed with balloons or something. It's amazing. But welcome, everyone. Leave your troubles at the door. Let me just get out of this outfit because to do the talk, I need to get out of this. Okay. All right. I'll put that over there. I'll put that on at the end of the show. Welcome, boys and girls. Come on in. Grab your pens and pencils, your coffee, hot chocolate, hot cider. Come on in. Darcy and Jock, obviously, Steve, Lynn, and everyone pile in. Barbara, Stan, Miles, Chris, James. Come on in, everyone. Leave your troubles at the door. Take a deep breath, because I know some of you have done amazing things since 6 o'clock this morning. Ready, everybody? Take a deep breath and let it out. And that's why they call it the Feel Good Show. So good morning, everyone. We have our Christmas spectacular. Everyone is still ooh and eyeing over the beautiful decorations here in the studio. And I got to thank John Ramsey and the staff, because this place looks like Rockefeller Center, Boobala. It looks like Rockefeller Center here. But a beautiful, beautiful job. We have a great show. This is going to be my Christmas message. We have a very different song at the end that I picked, and Jock said, yeah, that's cool, dude. Let's do that. And we're going to get into the topic, but as always, let's get to our shout-outs. We got a lot going on today. I want to get it all in before the song. So let's start with our shout-outs. First of all, we're going to welcome my sister Dina and her husband Jeff all the way from Myrtle Beach, y'all. And, yep, they're new listeners. They do listen once in a while or on archives. And so Jock, our antenna, so to speak, is all the way down there. So welcome aboard. They're not in the studio with us, boys and girls, but we did send them hot chocolate via the WATJ wagon. So they have their hot chocolate down there and their pads and pencils. Next under that, my brother and his wife threw a spectacular Christmas party from a bunch of listeners. Oh, here comes Fred and Lucille. They're running in. There's a seat over there, Fred. But they were there along with Lynn's sister and a brother-in-law and her mother, Connie, who just celebrated her 80th birthday. The woman looks like she's 60. And my cousin, what a beautiful job they do. Their house is absolutely amazing. Beautiful, beautiful lights and moving figures. The outside of the house is just amazing. A 1918 house, beautiful. But no one does the cotton like my brother. Boys and girls, if you ever get invited to Bridgeport, don't cancel it. Go, because what he does with the cotton, it looks like real snow. So thank you for them for a great night. AquaTurf. Lady Boz and I went to AquaTurf Tuesday. 1,500 people. What an event. They had the Chantels from Mohegan Sun. They had the Glamour Girls. They had decorations that looked like New York City. The food was outstanding. Beautiful tables. I sat with one guy who's 93 years old, dancing his butt off on the dance floor. So boys and girls, if you get invited to that or you hear about that next year, you don't have to be a senior citizen, though most of the people were. But Lady Boz and I, we took over that dance floor, and I'm telling you, we ate as we were dancing, and what a fantastic time we had there with our good friends, Fred and Lucille and their friends. Holy Family Retreat House, we're all going to the concert, 16 of us. My friend Keith Hodder's listening, his wife, Darlene, they're joining us, along with a bunch of other listeners. Boys and girls, next year, whatever you're doing on the second Saturday, is it the second Saturday? I think so. In December, or the third Saturday, I'm not sure. I've lost track. I'm so excited. Cancel it. Cancel it. Because there is nothing like being in the chapel at Holy Family and hearing those angelic voices, Father Dave conducting. It's the most amazing thing. Please join us next year. It was fabulous. And then last but certainly not least, looking forward to Christmas Eve, my daughter Emily cooking the 7 fishes, all fresh fish. People tell me, your daughter's in her 30s and she does what my grandmother used to do? You bet you're a sweet Santa Claus, she does. And we will be treated to a feast that'll go on for hours, linguine, clam sauce, all of it, flounder, whiting. And her and her boyfriend Storm put this together. And this is a tradition from my grandmother to my mother to my late wife. And now Emily has taken it over. And it is a big, big job, but she does a fabulous job. And it'll be our first Christmas with Jackson. So my sister's coming up. We're all going to be thrilled. So I hope all of you have big plans for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. All right, let's get into the format. The format. We're going to be finding the meaning of Christmas. The topic today is going to be called Christmas, obviously. But how can Christmas find its true meaning in you? In you. Not in the lights, not in the tree, not in the stores, in you. Okay? And so we're going to get into that. And the way we're going to get into that is we're going to delve into Isaiah. Okay? We're going to do a 2-part thing. We're going to go back 900 years before the birth of Christ. We're going to go back to Isaiah 7:14, and that's going to point us forward. And then we're going to jump all the way up to, we're going to go 1,000 years to John chapter 1. We're going to read some beautiful things there. And then instead of a takeaway, we're going to end with a beautiful Christmas story. I use it every year. I think it's appropriate. And we're going to end with that, and then we're going to go to the song. So let's get started with our topic. How are we doing on time? Ooh, we used up a lot of time in the beginning. Let's go. So we're going to start with Isaiah chapter 7. Here we go, 900 years before the birth of Christ. So what happens is there's this King Ahaz, A-H-A-Z, of Judah. That's the southern kingdom in Israel. And he's deathly afraid of an attack that is going to happen from the Syrians and the kingdom of Assyria. And he's deathly afraid of this, and he's shaking in his boots over this, okay? And so what he does is he asks for Isaiah to come and talk to him. But Isaiah is nervous about going up and seeing the big king because Isaiah is just this little prophet guy, right? But God says to him, be strong, Isaiah. Go up there and tell the king not to be afraid. So Isaiah tightens his belt and puts on his robe, and he goes up to the big king, and he says to the king, stand firm in your faith, or do not stand at all. Wow, those are big words, right? Don't we have to stand firm in our faith or not stand at all? And so the king is still very nervous because he's thinking that his people are going to be slaughtered. And his people are nervous. And we go further down in Isaiah, and it says, the people's hearts were shaken, just like the trees are shaken against the wind. And the king knows this, and he fears this from the 2 invading countries, Ephraim and Syria. And so he's trying to protect his people. He's looking for hope. He's looking for a way to be strong. Now, here's the beautiful part. Even though Isaiah tells him that stand firm, even though Isaiah tries to convince him, the king is still not convinced. And then Isaiah tells him the same thing we hear every Christmas. This is before it's Christmas, though, boys and girls, because it's 900 years before the birth of Christ. And here's what Isaiah says. He says to the king, in chapter 7, verse 14. Remember that number 14 when we get to John. He says, behold, virgin shall conceive a son, and his name will be Emmanuel, God with us. So amongst all the fear, amongst all the frightenedness against everything the king is worried about, Isaiah doesn't say, I got 50 chariots, I got 10 horses, I got 1,000 swords, I got 1,000 men, we're going to build a wall. He doesn't say that. That's what you think he would say. That's probably what the king wanted to hear. The prophet tells him a virgin will conceive a son, and his name will be Emmanuel, God with us. When St. Jerome put the Bible together, he called Isaiah's book the fifth gospel because there's so much prophecy in it. It's my favorite gospel. It's my favorite prophet. And a virgin will conceive a son. Ooh. Now, my question to all of you, is Isaiah's 7:14 enough for you? Now, I know a lot of you are having a great life right now. You know, people have moved to new places like my sister. Other people are enjoying fabulous relationships. I know that. I'm happy for you. But there are Assyrians. In the case of the daughter that you may not have spoken to, the grandchild you haven't seen, the father you didn't apologize to, the adult child who had to come move in with you again, and just when you and your wife were enjoying being empty nesters, the mother or father who's elderly and they need a lot of care, and there's a constant turnover of help, and you're constantly thinking about that. Is Isaiah's 7:14 enough for you, like it should have been for the king? A virgin will conceive a son. His name will be called Emmanuel, God with us. That's so powerful, that God with us, because people in the day always had God at a distance, the thunder, the top of the mountain. But now Isaiah is telling us God with us. And it comes through a woman. A lot of people say that the Bible, sometimes is anti-women. We talked last week, the first person who hears the good news is a teenager in Nazareth named Mary. The first person to see the risen Lord is a prostitute named Mary Magdalene. Where is it male heavy in the Bible? Women, the weakest in those days, see God for what he is. So my question to you is, for the battles that are raging in your life, waiting for a diagnosis, waiting for a medical exam, right? Maybe you didn't like the way the election is. Then on the bigger, the global world, the Ukraine, the global pandemic. We just witnessed yesterday the saddest day in Connecticut history. We don't have actual Assyrians, boys and girls, but metaphorically speaking, they're out there. You can't put your head in the sand. But is Isaiah's message for this Christmas enough for you? And I'm going to repeat that again and again. A virgin will conceive a son. Is that going to be enough for you this Christmas? And we talked about the incarnation. The word incarnate means a spiritual deity taking on the form of a human being. When you look at that little nativity this year, I don't care if you're Catholic, Protestant, Lutheran, you all have those little nativities under your Christmas tree or on your dresser somewhere. That is God in the form of a human being. Do you guys have any idea what that's like? That's like taking the entire universe and shoving it into the head of a pin. But he wanted, as I said last week, to be part of our humanity. Now, let me just see where we are at the time. Okay. I think we can do this. So, is Isaiah's message enough for you? Here's the good news. We jump 1,000 years because John's Gospels were written 100 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. And John is all by himself. Matthew, Luke, and Mark are what they call synoptic gospels because they have the same message, okay, the lineage of Jesus. But John is poetic. He's over here. He's by himself. All right. And I think, you know what, Jock, if you're not, can we do the break now? Because once I start with John, I want to roll. I want to roll through. Can we do it now?
Do you need some butter with that roll, bro?
Some butter.
I do want to make this very special announcement, breaking news. At 1 o'clock today on WAPJ, we're going to be doing a live simulcast with Dan Lavallo and Brad Field. They're going to be talking about the weather system that's coming in, making sure that everyone knows, the ins and outs of this particular storm, what to watch for, and all the vital information that you'll need to make sure that you're safe and your family is taken care of. So, and if you want to hold just one more second, I want to give these two brief community announcements. Can you hold 1 second with me, T-Boz?
Yes, I can. I know my sister's thrilled that she doesn't have to listen to Dan Lavallo's thing down in Myrtle Beach. It's probably 75. He's saying, I love this show, Tommy, but I'm glad I don't have to listen to that podcast. Go ahead, John.
I heard that.
The Torrington Soup Kitchen at 220 Prospect Street is open 7 days a week. Breakfast is available Monday through Friday.
This is live
8 to
radio,
9
boys
a.m.
and girls. So
Lunch is available Monday through Saturday
we don't plan
from
on
11:30
so,
to 12:30.
Do you want me to move
and
along,
on Sundays
Jock?
from noon to 1 p.m. And dinner is available Tuesday evenings from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. More information is available by calling 860-482-0130. That's 860-482-0130.
If you're homeless or will become homeless within the next 24 hours, help is available by calling 211. You can also catch the winter overflow bus to the shelter in Winstead, which leaves the Torrington Library parking lot around 1:30 Monday through Friday afternoon, returning to the library at 8:20 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure.
Go ahead, John.
We just want to make sure that everyone has that information as the inclement weather approaches to make sure that we can get the word out to cover everybody. So the buses leave from the Torrington Library at 1. I suggest you be there about 1:15 just in case, and they'll be returning the next morning at 7:30. So help us get the word out. Let everybody know what's going on so we won't have any fatalities due to this inclement weather that's coming in. So I do apologize for the interruption of the show, but we'll return it back to T-Boz. Thank you very much.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're all about people. So we talked about the word incarnate and what's going on here. So now here's the good news. We got the Assyrians. We got Isaiah telling the king Ahaz what's going on, but here's the good news. We go into John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Boom. So what Isaiah was prophesying, here's John saying, in the beginning was the Word. Isn't that interesting? It refers to Jesus as the Word. Why? Because words speak to us. Words touch us. Words impact our emotions. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And here's the clincher, and the Word was God. Right back to the incarnation, which we talked about. Okay, so as we move further from that, we keep moving down with John chapter 1, and he was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. That's in the Nicene Creed. So all the things, Jesus was the first fruits of creation. He's part of God. So before there was the earth, before there was Adam and Eve, before there was, I'll make darkness light, there was God. And then he became man in the person of Jesus Christ. Now we move down to this. I told you to remember the number 14. John chapter 1, verse 14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Boom. We go back to Isaiah, shall conceive a child, and called Emmanuel, God with us. That's chapter 7, verse 14. We go over to John 1,000 years later, different chapter, same number verse. That is amazing. That is amazing. And so, and the word becomes and dwelt among us, and he still dwells among us today. So what Isaiah was trying to tell the king, we're trying to tell all of us today. This Christmas, the babe dwells among us. Jesus came to us as a child, not as a warrior. That's what the people expected. Even John the Baptist was in doubt. Even Mary, right? How can this be? I do not know man. You know, a lot of times you go into churches and you see pictures of these people and they have halos. They didn't have halos back then. They were regular people like you and I, like Jock, like Holly, like Steve, like Lynn, like Dina, like Jim, like Peggy. They were regular people. So they had doubts. Before they became saints, they were people. And so they had their doubts. Even John the Baptist said, are you sure you're the Messiah? Because Jesus said to him, blessed are you that does not come against me. But they were looking for a warrior. We talked about this last week. They were looking for somebody with swords and hatchets or something. And instead they got a child born into poverty, born into the muck of a stable. And so they didn't get a warrior. So the other question I ask all of you is, then why are we warriors? Why are we, when we're spreading the word of God, why are we warriors? Why are we alienating families? Why are we alienating friends? Why are we alienating people because they're red, because they're blue, because they're purple, because they're green, because they're transgender, because they're gay, because they're straight, because they're lesbian? Why? The word became flesh and dwelt among us, not some, not a few, not the chosen, not whoever, us. For God so loved the world that he sent his only son. God so loved the world. Not just the Jews, not the Catholics, not the Protestants, not the gay, not the straight, not the purple, not the green. The world. W-O-R-L-D. Jesus came to us as a child. Why? Because it's easy to embrace a child. A child doesn't scare us. We grow as that child grows, as we're doing with Jackson. Jesus showed us in his life and on the cross how to love. Are some of us so busy kneeling that we have lost feeling? Are some of us so busy running to service that we're not giving service? I have a friend, I'm not going to mention who she had COVID. Then when she went through the next 5, she was past the 10 days, 12 days, but she was still feeling a little mashugana. That's a Jewish word for not feeling that well. But a friend of hers had some health challenges, and this friend lives alone. And so my friend, even though she was still a little mashugana or under the weather, she got some food and some cheesecake and some things for this woman and drove over and got her the stuff that she needed. And the woman was thrilled. That's the Christmas message. That's what we're talking about when we say God with us. What that woman saw in my friend is the face of God. She put aside her own challenges to help. So are some of us running to services but not giving services? Some of us have barns that are so full they're bursting at the seams that we just keep hoarding the stuff and we don't share it. We have blinders on and we're going through life and we think that we're kneeling and genuflecting and making the sign of the cross is Jesus' message, and it's not. The message is love. The message is 7:14 in Isaiah. The message is 1:14 in John. The virgin conceived the son. The word became flesh. That's what we're celebrating. That's what we're celebrating. So, as we move through, we also look at John 3:17, and it says, God did not send his son to condemn the world, but to save it. Are we condemning people because they don't think like us? Are we condemning people because they don't look like us? Are we really having the Christmas message of love, of service, of innocence? A child born to 2 peasant people. God could have come to us in many ways, but people of that day missed it, and are we missing it too? And when I say we, because you know what I say on the show, when you point the finger at one person, it's three pointing back at you. I've missed the message in my life. I have. I've had spiritual dryness. I'm a real person. That's the beauty part about our faith. Jesus is God, but people like Mary, she is not a God. She is a human being. People like Isaiah are human beings. People like St. Francis, these are human beings that had doubts. Mother Teresa, a more recent saint, had doubts. And that's okay. The key is to come back. And that's what Christmas does. It brings us back. We go back to the stable with all our inequities and all our challenges and all our doubts, and we look at the child in the stable and the muck and the dirt and the flies, and we get hope. And we come back, and we pick that child up, and we hold that child. Immediate love. You know why? Because you don't judge a child. And you know why? A child doesn't judge you. There is no takeaway today. I'm going to close with what I call the Christmas story. I tell you this, I say the story every year, and I'll make it brief because I want to get to the song. In our Italian tradition, we have this, and this story is called the Christmas cookie, and it wraps up everything I talked about. In the Italian tradition, in our leg of the family, we have these cookies called the gazzettelle, which means little house. And it's a little round cookie, and it's very hard to make. It's very difficult to make, but it's fabulous at Christmas time. And my late wife, who did not grow up Italian, learned how to make these cookies from my mother because she wanted to. She knew I grew up with it. My father grew up with it in Brooklyn. So she wanted to make these cookies, and she mastered it, as my brother Stephen says. He says, your wife mastered the Christmas Eve dinner. So these cookies were very hard to make, so she made them. And for 29 years, my father would sit at the table, and after all the fish was consumed and the wine and all of that, we had our espresso and sambuca, he would raise his cup and he'd say, Laurie, the gazzettelles were excellent, which was amazing because his mother used to make them, my grandmother, in Brooklyn. And every year, Laurie, the gazzettelles were excellent. That's how we would end the dinner, and we would delve into the gazzettelles. But in his last Christmas, 2012, we were at Rocky Hill, all of us, and my father was dying of stomach cancer. And my wife made the gazzettelles. And after the fish dinner, my father was so frail. You could see his cheekbones. He wasn't the big man. They say once a man, twice a child. And he was shaking as he picked up the gazzetelle, shaking. And he put the gazzetelle in his mouth. And he ate it. And my late wife and I were sitting right next to him. And he looked at her and he said, Laurie, he was shaking, this Christmas, you brought my mother to me. Imagine that. For 29 years, he told her they were excellent. But in that Christmas cookie, because my father loved his mother, like probably all of you do, they tasted so much and reminded him of his life. He said, Laurie, this Christmas, because he probably knew it was going to be his last, you brought my mother to me. When we got in the car that night, I said to my late wife, they don't make a box big enough for what you gave my father. I said, you gave him the gift of a lifetime. It wasn't something you bought in the store. It wasn't something that was sparkly. It wasn't something that the people said, you got to have this. It was a simple cookie. So here were two people, my father from Brooklyn, my late wife from Fairfield, two people from different ethnic backgrounds, different financial backgrounds, different in every single way you possibly could be. And they saw the babe in the manger in the center of a Christmas cookie. When he looked at her, he saw the babe. When she looked at him, she rubbed his arm and said, thank you. And she saw the babe. Two people found the meaning of Christmas in a cookie. The last question for all of you is, What's going to be your Christmas cookie this year? What can you give through you and have someone have the experience that my father had? It doesn't have to be a cookie, but what's going to be your Christmas cookie, boys and girls? What's going to be your Christmas cookie? Is Isaiah's 7:14 going to be enough? Is John's 1:14 going to be enough? Are you going to take the fact that a virgin conceived a child to help you with all your challenges? Are we going to learn acts of service? Are we going to say that the Word became flesh? And are we going to learn to do something like my wife did with those cookies? Did she learn to make those cookies so we had 29 wonderful desserts after Christmas Eve dinner? No. God helped her make those cookies so that she could give my father the gift of a lifetime. Like God told Isaiah, be strong. And it wasn't easy for her to make those things. But God gave her a mission, and she did it. I want all of you to have the most blessed Christmas. I want all of you to realize that it's not the things under the tree that matter, but it's the people around the tree. Christmas still is, in spite of all the nonsense that's going on around us, it's still like it was in Isaiah's time, a beautiful holiday. And that is the good news for all of us. And I'll say it for the last time. A virgin will conceive a son. And his name will be Emmanuel. May all of you, on behalf of WAPJ, Jock, and myself, the Feel Good Show, have a wonderful Christmas. We will not be here for a couple of weeks. And we'll be back in the new year, and hopefully we'll have some good news messages for all of you. Jock, you want to put a star on the top of the tree, and let's get to the song.
Well, I just think that it's amazing when you think about the grace of our Heavenly Father, in whatever vernacular you want to refer to him or her as. There is an element in the universe that we all can aspire to, and if we look deeper, we will find relationship in that. And that is definitely good news for the season. And the fact that these things have transpired through the centuries and have brought us to this point, we have reason to feel confident about our existence and how we can embolden that existence within our communities. So, once again, T-Boz, you're always opening our eyes to new possibilities, and your words of wisdom and moments of meditation are invaluable here to our listeners on the show. So, once again, we thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you again, Jock. Everyone, Jock has had a lot of challenges to be able to put on his show. And I said to him off air, but even though he and I sometimes have different political views on topics, but we discuss them as gentlemen because we're faithful people, he is a man of his word, and his yeses are yeses and his noes are noes. And he had to do a lot to get to the station this week, but because he loves the people of Torrington, he loves all of you, he walks the walk and talks the talk, he made it happen. And I admire him for his commitment to the station, his commitment to me, his friendship. And it's been a blessing and a Christmas gift these last few years, getting to know you and being able to do the show. So thank you for doing whatever you had to do to be there today. All right, so we got to get God into our life. Listen to the song. Everyone, it's Friday Eve. Get the wrapping done, get the shopping done, and then eat all the food. But make sure before you do all of that, you thank God for the blessings in your life. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, Jock. Right to the song.